And the fans are crying out, "Justice for Johnny." And they're talking about none other than Johnny Depp. And why, you ask? Well, it's quite simple. Johnny Depp was married for a brief period to actress Amber Heard. At the end of their marriage, through the course of their divorce, the aftermath, there were allegations put out that he was very abusive to her, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, in every kind of way, that he was like this monstrous, bad person who was doing all these monstrous, bad things to her. Now, of course, he was stigmatized by that. He lost out on at least one job that we know of, his reoccurring role in Pirates of the Caribbean. It was a big deal, big payday, and his reputation was tarnished. He was also in that Harry Potter universe movie, forgot exactly what it's called, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, I believe is, maybe that was the first installment, but it was in that series. He had a major role in that, and there was a lot of controversy about that. Some people were saying he should be dropped from the movie. Instead, they just put the brakes on releasing the movie. Regardless, the point is her allegations against him tarnished his reputation. He then, at a later point, filed a defamation lawsuit against her. I believe it was for $50 million. I think that's still ongoing. It's pending litigation, in which he claimed that she was, in fact, the abuser, that she physically abused him, that she did all this stuff to him. Okay? After that, she also came back by saying, oh no, he was very abusive, blah, 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 whatever. So recently what happened is there was a 1-hour audio tape that was released, a conversation between both of them prior to their divorce. And through the course of that conversation, she admits on numerous occasions that she has been physically violent to him. And he kept asking her or telling her that she can't do that. And if she does that, he's going to remove himself from the situation. Now, her major gripe through the whole conversation was that he always splits. You split all the time. You leave all the time. We're having a fight. You go away. And that was really making her very angry and causing her a lot of insecurity with the relationship. And she just kept saying over and over again that he splits, he splits, he splits. And he kept repeating that when she starts to make things physical or escalates and screams and does all this stuff, he doesn't feel that he has any other choice but to remove himself from the situation, because it could take a very, very nasty, bad turn if he were to reciprocate what she was doing. And she makes it abundantly clear that she had been physically violent with him. And at various points in the recording, she refuses to promise that she will refrain from physically attacking him in the future. Not once, not twice, several times she does this. And she's very, very... You can tell that she's very immature compared to him in the recording. And it certainly does not make her look like she is the victim of abuse. Now, in the aftermath of this audio recording being released and all the fans talking about justice for Johnny, Amber Heard's lawyer made a statement in USA Today, and I'm going to quote USA Today right here. In a statement to USA Today, Heard's lawyer, Roberta Kaplan, did not address the audio recordings and did not deny the allegations of physical violence, but argued that Heard was also a victim of abuse. The fact that a woman fights or talks back does not mean she has not been the subject of repeated domestic violence and abuse, the statement read. It's a myth to say, as Mr. Depp apparently is implying, that if Ms. Heard slapped him, then she can't also be a victim. That is just not true. Now, obviously, that statement is correct. There's nothing wrong with putting out a statement like that. However, when you listen to the recording and also are aware of some of the allegations that Ms. Heard made against Depp, you would realize that the recording actually does rebut many of the allegations that she's made against him. Namely, if he was the abuser in the relationship and he was doing all the things that she claims that he did to her, that conversation would not have gone down the way that it did. Because let's say that it was a rare instance when she was actually the person who was attacking him, and he was just taking advantage of that and talking about it at the time and saying, oh, well, look, you did this to me. Now, if their relationship really was one where he was always abusing her, you don't think that she would have mentioned that at the time? You don't think she would have said? She had ample opportunity, and she repeated herself many times, and clearly from the tone of her voice, the way that she was speaking, you could tell she did not feel threatened at all at the time. She was voicing her irritation, her annoyance, her frustration, her insecurity, and she was very, very vocal about it. Very vocal about it. You could tell within that whole dynamic of that conversation that she was the angry person there. Okay? So if he was the one who was abusing her all the time, and this was like a one-off situation, and she one-off slapped him, hit him, was physically violent in any way, and he's trying to be like, oh, well, you did this to me. You don't think she would have mentioned many, many, many times or pointed out the fact that, hey, you're the one who does this to me all the time. I just did this one thing to you one time, and look what kind of a big deal you're making out of it. She would have mentioned that. She never mentioned it. She never mentioned it at all. And when he kept repeatedly talking about how she was physically abusive, she only said that she couldn't control herself at times and that she gets very angry and she couldn't promise she wouldn't do that again in the future. At no point in that 1 hour conversation did she ever say or ever point out, hey, buddy, you're the person who's doing this to me all the time. You're the person who started this. You're the person who introduced this kind of abusive communication to our relationship. She never said that. And I think it's safe to say that any other person in that situation who felt that they were free to talk, who felt that they were free to express themselves, which she clearly was in that conversation, would have mentioned that. So that's a huge, huge red flag with the whole argument that, oh, just because she did this doesn't mean that she wasn't a victim. Now, look, it could be true. It could very well be true that at some point in their relationship, and I think even in that conversation, he admitted that he pushed her away one time. And who knows? It sounded like it was a very volatile relationship. You could easily believe at various points maybe he did do something to her. But the allegations that she's making and the way that she's trying to portray herself clearly seem to be false, given the way that that conversation went down. The other thing that is worth mentioning that goes against what she's saying or what she alleged against him many times is that he would relentlessly come after her. She basically painted him as being like the stereotypical abusive and possessive partner in a relationship. Yet, in the conversation, her biggest gripe against him, which she claimed was the biggest thing that was deteriorating their relationship and her trust in the relationship, was the fact that he would always split, that he would always leave, that when anything would get tumultuous, he would just take off. And she felt she couldn't rely on him. She couldn't trust him. She couldn't trust the relationship because he would always leave, which is the exact opposite of a person who's trying to be possessive. He sounded, from everything she was saying, if she's to be believed in this recording, which is very, she seems to be extremely candid in this conversation. She claimed over and over and over again that she didn't like it when he left. She didn't like it when he left, and that he left all the time. You're always going to split. You're always going to leave. Whenever we have a fight, you run out the door, you leave, you go away. I can't get in touch with you immediately, blah, 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 whatever. So her big thing was that he would leave. It really makes all of her statements about him not look credible. And that doesn't mean that he never did anything to her, that he was never physically abusive to her in any way. But what it does mean is that she is clearly lying about crucial aspects of their relationship. And if she's lying about crucial aspects of the relationship and she doesn't have any proof to support the allegations she's making against him, I don't think that she can be believed in this situation. I don't think she can be believed at all. The other thing worth mentioning before closing this out is that if the recording related to a one-off situation where it was just a one-off instance where she attacked him and he didn't do anything, but he was always the person who was attacking her, right? You don't think, and the tone that he was using and the calm way he was speaking, right? If that was out of the ordinary for him and out of the ordinary for their relationship, she would have mentioned that within the conversation. Because if he's this aggressive, abusive person who's talking and or yelling and screaming and possessing and abusing and doing all this stuff, and then all of a sudden she does one thing, it's a rare circumstance where she does one thing, and then he's just calmly talking, which that's what he was doing through the recording. He was very calm, he was very mature, he kept repeating basic points about not wanting to put himself into potentially dangerous situations. He didn't want to possibly retaliate. He didn't want to escalate the situation. He had to remove himself. If he was doing that and it was out of his normal character and she was on the receiving end of all this abuse, she would have mentioned that over and over. She would have said, "Why are you talking like this now? Why are you pretending to be this other person?" She didn't do that, which makes a listener to this recording believe that was the way that he normally would talk. And that's the way that he would normally deal with these kinds of issues. And it would frustrate her as she was frustrated in this recording. So the takeaway from this is not just that he doesn't seem to be the person that she's painting him out to be, and that she tarnished his reputation, and that she caused him to lose some business opportunities. Another important takeaway from this is that you cannot simply believe allegations. And I think that's part of the problem that we deal with many times in our society, especially as it pertains to allegations made by women against men. Women should not be mistreated. Women should have their rights. They should be able to hold people accountable who do wrong things against them, just as any other person. We shouldn't overlook that at all. But at the same time, we cannot blindly believe allegations just because they're made by a woman. That is very dangerous, okay? There are women out there. I'm not saying this is the norm in any way, but there definitely are a percentage of women out there who will take advantage of the unspoken way that we deal with these kinds of situations, and they know that they can easily destroy a man's reputation, potentially get him locked up, potentially take a whole bunch of his money away from him by doing these kinds of things. And this cannot continue. This is not the way forward. This is not what equality is about. Equality is not about putting women in general on a pedestal and saying that they're automatically to be believed whenever they make allegations against a man. That is just not the way things should work. As well as realizing women are not perfect beings. Women are not superior humans. They lie, they cheat, they steal, they do everything bad that men do. Okay, men are not better than women. Men are not morally superior to women. Women are not morally superior to men. Okay, women suffer many things at the hands of men. Men suffer many things as well at the hands of women. We have to treat things in an equal way, and we have to have hard evidence, proof, and facts before baseless allegations can destroy a person's reputation. And I'm talking about, going both ways, but we don't really see that in terms of men making an allegation or a man making an allegation against a woman and people automatically believing him. Generally, that's not the case. So take it as you will. You gotta weigh the evidence, people. You gotta weigh the evidence.